One of the best things on the show is really just, as we say, extraordinary people who lived ordinary childhoods and found a pathway to college. Every one of the guests has had something slightly different. Their journey, no journey is the same. And so briefly share sort of your time in high school. What was your journey? What was your path in getting you to senior year where you applied to schools, et cetera? So share with our audience your path to college.
Sure. So for me, growing up, college was always an unspoken expectation. My father was a first-generation student who met my mother at college in line for registration. They both graduated from their high school class at the top of the class. My mother was valedictorian, my father was salutatorian, and they both had received scholarships that in their case made going to college possible. My father was from a family of modest means, and my mother and a biological sister grew up with her aunt and uncle who had adopted her because her parents had passed when they were very young. My mother graduated in the traditional four-year time frame. They got married. My father had some school to continue. He had stopped out to go to the Army to help pay to be able to afford college. And then once he completed college, and then when he graduated, I was born that next month. So talk about going from 0 to 60 in terms of moving from college right into sort of adult life. So like I said, the expectation was unspoken based on their experience, that they really held true that where they were in their lives was due to their ability to be able to go to college. But in that sort of unspoken expectation, my college search was really not as I would advise a college search to go. In high school, I was in honors and AP courses. I was very involved in music. And really, as I look back, so much of what I've learned was really due to being involved sort of in a competitive music organization. This is where I learned to set goals, apply strategies and put plans to achieve those strategies. And I think that sort of competitive spirit has always stayed with me. But as I was looking at in 4 schools, essentially what I did was, and this is even though I was getting all sorts of mail, at home from various colleges based on, I know it was really based on my test scores, that I was looking through them, but I didn't know what I wanted. And I didn't have necessarily the support other than just sort of at a very superficial level to really discover what was important to me. So my college list was really interesting. It really was 2 different themes. The first was schools that I knew of because family members had went there, and I respected those family members. And the other was schools that I knew friends were interested in. So I did what was really important. Was that I had visited all of these schools to get a sense of what was going to resonate with me and what wasn't going to resonate with me. And, I know there are times when people apply to a certain type of college, like all liberal arts colleges or all large colleges, public, private. Mine was a complete mix, in part because I wasn't sure what I wanted. So in the process, I spent a lot of time visiting, but whereas I always recommend students to start visiting early on in high school, like start going to visit colleges, in your sophomore year, certainly by your junior year, to get a sense of what college is like, what the best fit is for you. I was doing it all in my senior year. So it was really a quick path to discovery of what I wanted. I had visited a small liberal arts college in upstate New York, realized that was really too small for me in terms of what I was looking for. I'd applied to a fairly large private institution that my uncle had gone to, but I went to an alumni interview after having passed the first round of the application process, and the alumni interviewer completely turned me off. He was just so arrogant. I said, well, if people at the college are like this, that's not me. So I said, then the next college that I looked at was a medium-sized public institution, and realized that it just wasn't in the location. that I was looking for. It was a little bit isolated. And then finally, I ended up at a large public flagship institution where I was able to follow my passion of band and music in a very large ensemble and follow my desired degree, which was in the School of Management at the time. The irony of all of this is
it had everything you were looking for. Finally,
at the end of the day. At the end of the day, and so my biggest suggestion is, whereas my search process was really packed into a few months, I suggest to students, start your sophomore year, start exploring, start discovering what it is that you're interested in. If you're in an area where there are colleges, just go and visit them. And so, maybe not now with the pandemic, they might have, visit may not be as open as one might expect, but definitely go and visit to get a sense of what is of your interest. And then I guess to close that part of the story, that this was my parents' alma mater. So I ended up following in their footsteps, and that actually added a richness to my college experience because they re-engaged with the college, and because I was playing in the marching band, they would come to the football games, and we got to sort of have that extended family time.
Well, share with everyone where you went.
So I went to UMass Amherst, and I was in the Minuteman Marching Band, which is known as the Powering Class of New England, about 400 students involved in the band, which is larger than the freshman class here at St. Mary's.
Wow, that's amazing. I love this story. And I know you shared some of it with Dream College Academy. Now, we talk a lot about, in Dream College Academy, we talk about starting early. So I love that you're sort of reinforcing this, because nowadays, it is, depending on where students are applying, it can be so competitive. You can't really just roll out of bed in senior year like you and I both did. I was like, hey, I think I'm going to apply to college. It's really not that simple anymore. But so I love that you said start early. And the other thing, listeners, that I want you to write down is that David talked about being involved in music as a high school student and competing then. And that was a place where he really learned to set goals and strategies and things like that, and competition, things like that. So whether it's athletics or performing arts or whatever it is in high school, that is a place. Let them learn and thrive and succeed and fail. That's where they're going to learn a lot of lessons. So fantastic. Okay, so we are at the point where I like to, our listeners like to know, this college admissions can seem overwhelming and sort of like secretive and nobody knows. So a tip or a truth that you would like every family to know, the tip or the truth about college admissions, and something that's practical that they can utilize. And then we'll talk about a tale, someone that you remember. So share your best tip or truth about the college admission process.
Sure. So, it's we're at St. Patrick's Day. And around this time of year, we're going to start to hear these stories about the very low admit rates of very well-known colleges and universities. And because of the pandemic, some of this news has actually started earlier as schools, sort of these well-known schools, have had tremendous increases in their applicant pools because they chose to go test optional due to the cancellation of SAT and ACT tests due to the pandemic. So many more students are applying to schools that they might otherwise not have applied to as a reach, because they don't have to worry about their test scores unduly influencing the process. So my truth to college admissions is, while there's just so much news about all of these highly selective and very, very well-known schools, the fact of the matter is that most schools admit most students who apply. And that ultimately is not a measure of the quality of the school. That ultimately it really is a measure of, ultimately it really is only a measure of students who find these schools and can find the best fit for themselves. And ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is that it's not about sort of what the school is and the name that the school has, what that bumper sticker will look like on the back of the car. It really is about the school that's going to provide the best possible experience for who you are as a student and preparing yourself for the future that you're dreaming for yourself.
Oh my goodness, that was just so beautifully said. Thank you for saying that out loud. Most schools admit most applicants, and that is a truth. We've had other people say that similarly, like but not enough people say that that's a really big truth. So thank you for sharing that. Oh, you guys, it's not always about the name. It's not. Okay.